more things change, the more they stay the same. Boundaries shift, new players step in, but power always finds a place to rest its head. We fought and bled alongside the Russians. We should have known they'd hate us for it. History is written by the victor, and here I am thinking we'd won. But you bring down one enemy and they find someone even worse to replace him. Locations change, the rationale, the objective. Yesterday's enemies are today's recruits. Train them to fight alongside you, and pray they don't eventually decide to hate you for it too.
The Zaporozhia Nuclear Power Station in southeastern Ukraine is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe and among the 10 largest in the world. It was built by the Soviet Union near the city of Enerhodar on the southern shore of Kharkovka Reservoir on the Dnipro River. On the 3rd of March 2022, just a couple of weeks since the invasion, the nuclear power plant was preparing for a fight. A news release posted on its website just hours before the assault described the facility as operating normally, with its assigned Ukrainian military unit ready for combat. The Russians attacked with around 10 armored vehicles as well as 2 tanks. The column of armored vehicles, led by the tanks, approached the plant from the southeast along the main service road to the facility. Around an hour and 20 minutes later, one of the 2 tanks that led the column was struck by a missile from Ukrainian forces and was disabled. That marked the beginning of a fierce firefight that lasted for roughly 2 hours at the plant. Immediately after the tank was disabled, Russian forces returning fire appeared to hit the transmission line connected to the plant's main electrical substation. Russian forces then pushed their way into the parking area near the front gate and began shooting. Much of the fire was directed towards the training center and the plant's main administrative building. But at various points in the battle, Russian forces lobbed rounds deep into the nuclear complex in the direction of the reactor buildings. During 2 hours of heavy combat, a fire broke out in the training facility outside of the main complex, which was extinguished by 6:20 am. Though other sections surrounding the plant sustained damage, the fire did not impact reactor safety or any essential equipment. It was later learned that a large caliber bullet pierced an outer wall of reactor number 4 and an artillery shell hit a transformer at the reactor number 6. By 2:25 am on March 4th, the fighting was mainly over. In the early hours of 19th of October, a task force of about 600 Ukrainian troops in 30 boats consisting of soldiers from Ukraine's elite units, including Ukraine's military intelligence, Shaman battalion, Kraken Regiment, and the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, attempted to land on the right bank of the Dnipro. The idea was to launch an infantry-only battle, as the Ukrainians were sure that Russia would not respond with artillery, fearing a catastrophe at the nuclear plant. The Russians had built a very dense defense, with trench networks and minefields. At that time, Russian troops had been holding the power plant for more than 6 months, using its territory to fire on Ukrainian cities on the other side of the Dnipro and the large steel plant in Nikopol. Also, there has been evidence on the internet that the Russian army uses the power plant to store military equipment. A special forces speedboats crossed a stretch of river nearly 3 miles wide. Precision HIMARS rockets provided by the US smashed into Russian positions on the riverbank. A handful of the Ukrainian Special Forces teams in smaller boats managed to make it to the shore as dawn broke. The main force was unable to land due to constant strikes from Russian military helicopters and fighter jets. The battle took 3 hours around the outskirts of the town of Enerhodar, which adjoins the plant. According to Russian reports, Ukraine lost 90 men and 14 boats in the attempt, and stated that there had been 3 earlier smaller Ukrainian failed attempts, landing troops across the river.
Помогали. Слава Украине.
The Times notes that due to the risk of radiation leakage, such an attempt raises questions even among the Ukrainian officials who are convinced of the need to regain the power plant. The MOD said that the second attempt on 2nd of September involved 2 groups of boats and motorboats totaling 42 units, with a landing force of over 250 people from the Special Operation Forces and foreign mercenaries who attempted to land on the coast of the Kharkovsky Reservoir in the area of Enerhodar. Putin added, however, that the greatest threat to the plant remains the Russian presence. He reportedly said that the Russians were using control centers as barracks, installing gun emplacements on the roofs, and constructing fortification close to storage sites of radioactive material. They keep ammunition trucks inside the reactor's turbine halls, risking a nuclear incident that could blight Ukraine for decades. However, this seems unlikely, as the International Atomic Energy Agency inspection, which is permanently present at the plant, has reported no such violations. Moreover, according to Rosatom, the fortification was built to protect the used fuel storage facility from repeated Ukrainian shelling and drone attacks.